Hi everyone. All right, this is very exciting. I thought that the Raikou Nitoshi unboxing that I did a few weeks ago was going to be one of the more interesting pieces that I posted to my channel this year. But here I am 2 weeks later, and I have a sword that I think is going to be very interesting for everyone to see the unboxing of and hear details about. So, as usual, I have an idea in advance of what it is that I'm receiving. So what we're going to be looking at today is a blade by Muramasa. Muramasa is a name that's pretty universally known for anybody who has passing interest or has read about the field of Japanese sword studies. He's like Masamune, kind of is the name that people recognize. And in the case of Muramasa, the name has a lot of infamy associated with it. So let me go ahead and unbox the sword, and we have a Kantei show here. And I know that this is going to be mounting, koshirai, and a blade in shirasaya, so I'm just going to set this aside. And as usual, I'm going to start with the papers. So we have what looks like a current NBTHK Kantei show. And I'm running 2 cameras here so I can show the papers in detail. And it is NBTHK Hozone. I'll go ahead and show this to the detail camera. We have a Kantei show for a Mume Wakizashi with an attribution to Muramasa. And then we have our length, Nagasa, 1 shaku, 2 sun, 1 bu. And it looks like the sword was registered in Showa 35, which is 1970. So it is an ubu or unshortened blade with 1 mukugiyana or 1 hole in the nakago or tang. Current Hozone papers. So the measuring system that I was just showing, that's the shaku system, is the traditional Japanese measurement system that you see on Japanese sword Kantei sho. A shaku is roughly 1 foot, and then it's divided into sun and bu. So a sun is 10 sun is 1 shaku, and then 10 bu is 1 sun. So when you combine those together, you get a precise measurement of the nagasa or length of the Japanese sword. So this is just over wakizashi length. If a blade is up to 1 shaku in length, it's a tanto. Between 1 to 2 shaku in length is classified as a wakizashi, and then above that is a daito of some kind. It may be a katana, it may be a tachi, an odachi. But this is a wakizashi length blade, ko-wakizashi or short wakizashi in hirozukuri, or flat-sided construction. So let me start by unboxing the blade, and then I'll get to the koshirai or mounting. And while I'm doing this, I'll talk a little bit about Muramasa. So Muramasa is, he's famous because of all the legends associated with the smith and his work. And it is an infamous kind of legacy that he's left. And the reason for that is over several generations and several incidents of the Tokugawa family, they were injured or killed, had wounds inflicted by Muramasa blades that progressively gave them the feeling that these blades were somehow cursed as far as being a danger to the family line. And this goes back to the grandfather of Tokugawa Ieyasu, who was the first of the Edo-period shogun. His grandfather, Matsudaira Kiyoyasu, and Kiyoyasu was the 7th generation of this particular Matsudaira lineage, was in conflict with the Oda. So there was a battle or an attack on Moriyama Castle. He had 10,000 troops that were going to attack the castle. And while this was happening, there was a rumor that was floated that one of his retainers, Abe Sadayoshi, was in contact with the enemy and was a traitor to the Matsudaira. Was not true. Abe Sadayoshi was known to have been a loyal retainer of Kiyoyasu. However, to avoid risks to his name, his family line, he had ordered his son, Sadayoshi's son, to come and to kill him to kind of assuage any concern or worry that he was somehow going to betray his lord. So His son obviously was traumatized by everything that was happening, by the request to do this. However, he was on his way to see his father, and he happened to encounter Tokugawa Ieyasu's grandfather, Kiyoyasu, on the way. It was just a bad bit of misfortune, but when they encountered each other, his son, who was Masatoyo, was startled and kind of instinctively decided to attack. And he struck at Kiyoyasu twice. In the first strike, he cut off part of Kiyoyasu's ear, and then Kiyoyasu turned, and the final fatal blow went across his shoulder and out through his hip. And in the aftermath of the killing of Kiyoyasu, it was found that the blade that Masatoyo was using was a long 81 centimeter Muramasa katana. And that was the first of these incidents. Let me go ahead and unpack, and then I'll continue with talking about what happened and where that leaves us today. So, beautiful, beautiful. So this is a Kowakizashi, Hirozukuri blade, flat-sided. Ubu, or unshortened, with one Mukugiyana, two-piece solid silver foil habaki. And let me just show clearly the nakago or tang of the blade. I will include some better lit, high-resolution detailed videos as well, so it can be seen. And let me just set this aside, and I'll get to the koshurai in a moment. All right, so we talked about Ieyasu's grandfather. These series of incidents continued. Ieyasu's father, Hirotada, was sleeping one night, and he felt vibrations or movement through his pillow. He woke up, went to see what the cause was, and he was struck by an assassin. There was a one-eyed assassin named Iwamoto Yasuke. And he survived this assassination attempt, but Yasuke had a Muramasa wakizashi. Then we move forward to Tokugawa Ieyasu, and this is certainly one of the more tragic stories related to Muramasa, and there were two incidents. One of them, when he was very young, he was handling a kogatana off his blade, which is a small knife in the side of the sai or scabbard, and he cut his hand, and even though it was just a small kogatana, he was cut deeply and was very painful, and he saw at that time that the kogatana was signed Muramasa. So here we have the third incident. And then later, the first wife of Tokugawa Ieyasu was Tsukiyama Dono, and she became the mother to his first son, Nobuyasu. So he had been raised by the Imagawa family. He married a member of the Imagawa family. However, as his career grew and as his ambitions grew, he realized that he needed the Oda alliance to be able to fight the Takeda. So as he's gaining power and as he's going through these military confrontations, a strategic alignment with the Oda became very crucial to him, especially in being able to oppose the Takeda. So this became an issue because his wife was from a clan that was historically opposed to the Oda. And in order to prove his allegiance to the Oda and the fact that he would not betray them with any of their enemies, he felt compelled to order the execution and suicide of his wife and his son. His first wife was executed, and then his son was ordered to commit seppuku. When this happened, the individual that was intended to be the second or the supporting person in the seppuku ceremony for Nobuyasu was a friend of his. He could not carry forward with the process and ended up being an Imagawa retainer who agreed to support him during seppuku. And that retainer was using a Muramasa wakizashi. So here we now have our fourth incident, and a Muramasa blade wakizashi was responsible for the death of his firstborn son. All right, and now we come to the final incident in the life of Tokugawa Ieyasu that put him into an encounter of misfortune related to Muramasa blades. After the Battle of Sekigahara, he was being shown the heads of the enemies who were killed during battle, and he was presented with the head of Toda Shigemasa. who had been killed when a spear went entirely through his helmet. Being given the spear itself to look at, he was admiring its sharpness and its beauty and was commenting it was an exemplary weapon, and it began to fall. And when he caught the spear, he was deeply cut by it. He joked at that time that, from his injury, that it must be a Muramasa. When he made that comment, his retainers said, in fact, yes, it is a Muramasa. And then he said, if these blades are a danger to you and your family, then I will never use one again, and broke the spear in front of Ieyasu. So at this point, it became not a law, but an unwritten rule that you don't want to own a Muramasa blade if you want favor of the Tokugawa shogunate. And that began the process of defacing or removing the mei of Japanese swords that are signed Muramasa that we see today. It's called a kaisan mei, where an inscription is modified or altered, and in this case, Muramasa is a two-character signature, Muramasa. You have different variations of what happened to these mei, but they were modified in a way that they were no longer readable or recognizable as Muramasa. Generally, what happened, if the mei was not entirely removed, is that one of the characters was scrubbed off of the nakago, compressed, and then a new character was added. So there's different ways that this happened. Many times the mura was removed and then a new kanji added underneath of the masa kanji. So Muramasa would become, for example, Masamune, Masamitsu, Masahiro. Sometimes the masa character would be removed and you have Munetada, or Muratada rather. So many different variations are seen, but the point is that the nakago was modified in a way that the mei of Muramasa was generally not readable anymore. So that actually is the case of what we're seeing here and why this sword is so interesting. There is a faint Muramasa mei visible in the nakago. It is not distinct enough that you can read it, and the MBTHK treated it as fully mumei, but understanding the history of what happened with these blades and knowing what Muramasa mei looks like, you actually can see that there was a Nijime or two-character inscription of Muramasa on the sword. So getting into the deck here, the workmanship of Muramasa blades, they appear very similar to Mino blades of the time period in general. There's a few different theories on the origin of Muramasa. In some cases, it's believed that he was a student of Mino Kaneharu. In others, they believe that there is a teacher-student relationship with Muramasa and Hanjo Nagiyoshi. It is not established, and there's different competing views on this. But Muramasa first generation dated to around the middle 1400s, and there were several generations that went through, but the most famous were the first generation and the second generation, with the second generation working around the very beginning of the 1500s, I think around 1502. So again, we have a blade here that's very classically Muramasa as far as the shape. It's wide, it's thin. There's sometimes Mitsumune, other times Iori-mune like this. You have a nakago that is in the Tanagobara nakago, so it's got a fish belly shape to it. They did work in this way that has a Soshu-esque appearance to the nakago. And then Muramasa blades, and this will be clearer when I do detailed videos, are known to have a Hamon with very deep valleys, generally gunome with deep valleys in between, and as is the case with this, they are known to have a mirror Hamon. So the workmanship on either side of the blade is identical in the Hamon. So it appears almost that it is a mirror reflection from one side of the sword to the next. That is unusual. In almost all other cases, there's variations, sometimes dramatic variations from the ura and the mote, the front and the back of the blade, but this is in that typical Muramasa style where it is very closely matched on either side. So let me go ahead and take out the koshirai for the sword as well. And the sword is very well packed. Packing the Japanese swords so they can survive shipment is something that is very important and not always done well. But in this case, the kushirai and the blade arrived safely. And as I mentioned in my last video, it's a very good idea to include an air tag in a box as well. Shipping has not always been reliable recently, but an air tag provides an extra level of protection, and well, it is beautiful. So I'm just going to show Shakudo Nanako Kosuga. The Menuki are also in Shakudo of ox. There's a Yamagane Suba with inlay. And this is also very interesting that the kashira is in horn. And what happened many times is that in conflicts and in damage during the Edo period and before, the wrap might have been broken, the kashira that was here became missing, and then it was replaced with horn. So you have a mismatch of a soft metal fuchi and then a horn kashira at the very end. So beautiful koshirai in excellent condition, and definitely a worthy mounting to have associated with a blade like a Muramasa blade. So I will go back and I will update my website and this video with additional detail images of the blade to show the workmanship, and I will be back with more content soon. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks.